Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to today's edition of HR Mentorship Learning Series. Today, we are looking at a very critical but important topic, HR Audit An Overview. And we have an industry veteran in person of Mr. Shiji Oluwumi, who will be taking us through this important topic. I would like to say first and foremost that Mr. Oluwumi reached out to me directly to offer to provide this service to us due to his passion to impact knowledge. We do not take it for granted, sir. He's a very busy man, both officially and in other ramifications. Just to mention that Mr. Shiji Oluwumi is a graduate of Agri-Soil Sciences from University of Nsukka, Nigeria. He also has a master's in industrial relations and personnel management from the University of Lagos. He has an MBA from the University of Ibadan, where he specialized in general management and marketing. He has worked in quite a number of organizations. I'll just mention a few. He was regional sales manager, North and West, BOC Gas Nigeria PLC. He was HR manager at BOC Gas Nigeria, a role he held for over 10 years. He was also principal and lead consultant at Solbus Professional Services Limited, where he is till date. Mr. Shiji Oluwumi is also a performance coach. Please, let's welcome heartily to this platform one of our own members in the HR mentorship and industry veteran, Mr. Shiji Oluwumi. You have the floor, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be in our midst, and I hope that it will be an evening to remember by all. HR audit is a necessity from my own point of view because nothing stays the same, and we have to evolve with changes as it comes up. And that's why it is key for HR practitioners, to have an idea of it, because many are ignorant of it. But most importantly, because nothing stays the same, there must be a way to review what we do from time to time to make sure that we stay, on top of situation, we remain current as an HR people. And unfortunately, this can be done by self. Any audit worth its while has to be done by a third party to give it some credibility, because you cannot see the spec or even the log in your eyes by yourself. Somebody else must come in and help to take it out. And that's what this audit is all about. Like every profession, there must be a measure of review from time to time. And that is necessary to make sure that you are current in the state of affairs of that profession. And HR shouldn't be an exception. It's so key, so central. I see HR as the heartbeat of the business. And if that heartbeat is not healthy, it will affect every other part of the system. And that's why I feel that there is need for brethren in the field to have a good grasp of it, at least to have a taste of it from this overview, so that going forward, they can not only endorse it, but partake in it as an organization, as a representative of the organization, and as a professional. That is what this program is all about. And I hope at the end of it, we will leave taking some lessons along. For me, I like starting any program I undertake with walls of marble. I like to stand on the shoulder of those who have tread this path before, so that I can see, further while imbibing or bringing in some new dimension. The old is always relevant any way you look at it. You ignore your past, and your future will be very doubtful. And that's what this walls of marble is all about. It says here that one sure way to increase businesses' profits is to imbibe a process called Process Improvement Program. And that Process Improvement Program is an internal thing. And when a business processes, internal processes and extracts are sound, then they will at least bring in sanity in the system, and most importantly, improve a lot. Now, the other person not sure way to increase a business profit or businesses, to increase businesses' profit is to implement a process improvement program. There is nothing that cannot be improved, nothing. And HR is not, it's not an exception. I mean, HR, the same applies to HR. And when the internal processes are good, then it will rub off. It's just being like a human being, being healthy, rub off everything you do. If you are not healthy, it impacts it negatively. All the audit findings are easy to come up with. Successful change from a finding is true internal audit value, in which case it's not just reviewing or examining the situation, but it is in carrying out the changes that are called for that will make a difference. And that's what Michael Piazza is saying here. It's easy to come up with those findings, but what is important is, what do you do with those findings? You must get them sorted out, corrected or implemented so that it adds value to the business itself. Having said that, the question I want to ask is that, what is the mission excuse me, of an HR department? Because we need to remind ourselves about it so that we know how to move forward. It is to provide effective human resources or resource management by developing and implementing policies, programs, and services that contribute to the attainment of corporate and employee goals by properly balancing the needs of the employees and the needs of the company. Now, that is one big responsibility that has been entrusted into our shoulders as HR experts or practitioners, as the case may be. We are to provide effective HR management, and by developing and implementing policies, programs, services that contribute to the attainment of the corporate goal of the employees, and do a lot of balancing act in doing that. Now, an audit, we have had, it's a word that has been branded about, it's perhaps more common with the finance side of the business, but essentially it's a necessity, even with life itself. You must take time out from time to time to audit yourself, to audit whatever it is that you are doing. And it's all about examination, by reviewing whatever it is that you do, or the business that you run, or the units where you are working. You need to do it. And now to do it is fine, but like we have mentioned, an eye cannot see the speck in it. And so you need a third party or an independent party, as it were, to help you to do that and give it authenticity. So while you want to examine or review or inspect whatever it is that makes up an HR department, the focus is always to ensure compliance to those requirements. There are requirements, there are rules, there are do's and don'ts. How compliant are you with them? That is the essence of audits, because being compliant with them gives that unit, department, organization, what you call authenticity. It gives it credibility, rather, because it means that it's doing what it says it will do and doing it well. So compliance is a key thing when it comes to audit. Are you compliant or not? If you are not, then you have to find a way to meet up with it. And there are penalties for non-compliance. That must be mentioned. Non-conformity with any part of the laws that HR must obey, or things it has to do, it attracts some penalty. And that is why we have to be up and doing as practitioners. Every stakeholder in the business must be assured that we are above board, because it affects the life of the key player in the business. And so that assurance must be guaranteed in the way we do things and the policies, procedures, and everything we do, essentially. You know, there is the so-called popular International Standard Organization, and they described HR audit as a systematic, independent, documented process for obtaining audit evidence. That is record, statement of fact, and all of that. And evaluating it objectively to determine the extent to which the criteria that is set are fulfilled or met. This is key. It is independent. Audit must be independent, in which case a third party must come in there. You can't see yourself. Somebody else must look at you and assure you that, yes, you are good to go. That is the rationale for an audit. And with respect to HR audit, it is a thorough, objective, and professional check or evaluation of our policies, our processes, our practices, our procedures, even the structures of the organization, with the aim to facilitate the achievement, the objective for which that department is set, and more importantly, to remain competitive. HR is so key. If you don't have competent hands that are, how do I describe it? That enjoy what they are doing and are giving their all, it's no brainer. Within a short time, the repercussion will be within the system output in terms of results. Because we have an environment that is fast changing, is moving quickly, you cannot but join the race to make sure that you remain relevant, and that whatever it is that you do, move forward accordingly. Excuse me. I have the wrong thing in there. Sorry, I just clicked on something wrongly. Just a second. Hello, can you hear me or see me?
Yeah, we can see you. We were seeing your screen before, but we can't see your screen again.
Yeah, we can hear you clearly, but the screen you are sharing can no longer be seen.
Pardon me, please.
Okay, we can see the screen again.
Great,
We can
thanks.
see the screen.
Thank you.
Yeah, we can see the screen and yourself now.
Thank you. I'm so sorry. Now there are two parts to the HR business. I hope I'm taking up from where I stopped. And there is the legal compliance, and there are the non-legal one. And these two must be taken together. And I need to mention that unlike the finance audit, HR takes at least a minimum of 2 years to do again, because once you review it and you have conformed with whatever that you have to conform with or comply with, then you are good to go. It takes another 2 or 3 years to do it again, but not later than 3 years. In which case, this is a process that is continuous with 2 to 3 years interval in between, just to make sure that the changes that might have evolved during the intervening period can be quickly attended to. Now, why are we doing this? And we have split it into two, but the quick ones are here. The immediate benefits to the organization. The idea is if you do a thorough audit, then you will see the need to see how to maximize contributions of the members, the employees, because that is the major thing everybody is on board for, to make sure that they deliver on the expectation. Not, seriously, genuinely, more than averagely. That is key with respect to having those people on board. And to ensure that there is an alignment with the overall business. What are we talking about when we say about alignment? That is, they apply themselves, that the HR plays that critical role that it's expected to do. It must be, like I said, it gives us the pulse of the well-being of the organization. So if it's not aligned with that business, then it's a big failure. And the members that makes up the HR department are responsible. Now, at all times, HR must be at the forefront of streamlining work processes. The idea is simple: to ensure ease of doing the work. If the process are unwieldy, then you have some challenges getting it done. Now, there is nothing, like we have mentioned, that stays the same. So continuous improvement is important. And that starts from doing, how do we call it now? From doing an introspection, which is actually about audit. Check yourself. How are you doing what you are doing? And most times, which is one of the major problems of HR, they like doing it all. There are always extra hands out there that can help you to get some of the things you are doing well. You can't do it all. It's something that has to do with human beings, and they are as varied as the number of them that you have within the system. And so you will see an HR man in every part of the system, and unless it takes some extra hands here and there, because you can't have all hands in-house. You can't have all facilities or facilitators in-house. You have to bring in some people to help you to sanitize the system so that it's above board and can be relied upon to deliver whatever responsibility has been committed to it. And essentially, when you bring in a third party to do this audit for you, it instills a sense of confidence in that HR itself. From beginning, from the top, the MD is confident that yes, some shakeup has taken place and the place is good to go. And most importantly, because the people are the faces of the organization, they see everywhere in organization, starting from the customers, starting from the families of your staff, they represent, everybody in there represents the organization one way or the other. And the reputation will be determined by that. And we must take care of that. So we must maintain, the intention of the audit is to maintain or enhance the organization reputation in the community, starting from your immediate vicinity. It tells a lot about what the people tells a lot about what the organization is all about. Now, there are different types of audits, and I'll run through this quickly, be mindful of the time to make sure that we have some time to answer some queries or questions people may have. There is the first party audits, and so we say that is performed within an organization to measure its strengths and weaknesses against its own procedure or method. Now, and the idea is the external, the standard is external. And you can engage, for instance, You can take a cue from other organizations that are your neighbors, from your, organizations that are your neighbors or that you have, relationship with. You can take a cue from some of the things they have done to make sure it impacts your organization positively as well. And in some cases, and the best one of the first party is to do it voluntarily. You are not under compulsion. But anything that is not audited, whether you like it or not, gets worse over time. Just because we have mentioned that nothing stays the same. This is important. So you can do it. The rule, I don't know how efficient, for instance, of the government auditors that comes around or inspectors come around compels us to change. Sometimes we need some triggers of that nature to make sure that we comply with this expected standard. But the best audit is the one you decide yourself, that is done voluntarily. You can invite your customer, for instance, to come and have a review of your operation. If you are supplying them an item that associate both of you together, they can come in and see the process in action, how safety conscious you are, how the quality of the product is. And on account of that, they can stay with you as an organization. It is an internal audit. A first-party audit is conducted by the auditors who are employed by the same organization being audited. In which case, if you bring in the likes of Shijiolumi now, you have chosen to do an internal audit of your operations. And because you have brought me in, of course, I will do a thorough job of it to meet your expectations. Sometimes we need to do that to save us what we call it, a hell of a problem along the way. That is what the first party is. The second party audit is an external audit performed by a supplier. Now, to guarantee their confidence in the services or products that you offer, your customer can say, look, we want to audit your system to make sure that whatever input you give into their own business does not corrupt it, but rather enhances it. And so you have no choice, if you crave their patronage, to open your door and let them come in and do that. Now, this is becoming common these days, just to make sure that the quality of the other party is not affected by your organization's inputs or products or services that you render. Now, unlike the first party, the second party audits are more formal, and they can have serious repercussions with respect to purchasing decisions. There is another form of, of third party, and this essentially may result in what we call certification or registration or recognition, as the case may be. We all are aware of what we call the ISO certification, International Standard Organization. Once they endorse you, usually for a period of maybe about 2 years, because they also want to remain in business. Once the endorsement is there, both local and international confidence in your operations or your services or products is endorsed. You can just take that home. They do that to make sure that the quality of the service you render or what makes it up, is assured. The public have confidence in that ISO, and they patronize your business on that basis. Now, aside of those three ones, there will be different phases. I must be quick to mention that audit is quite what you can call, so I'm giving a summary here. I guess that's what I need to mention so that I don't take too much time. But essentially, you have the planning and preparation stage, and it starts with the decision to conduct an audit and ends when it is rounded up. But basically there is the execution of it. The execution part is going in to do the work. We call it field work. because you have to check so many stuff. If you are looking at processes, you have to be thorough about all the processes involved, the procedures, same story. If it is or the records, you have to be thorough at it. The idea is simple. You want to see the weakness within the system, not for the joy it will bring, but with a view to correcting it. And that is important because it takes just a twinkle of an eye for the rots to accumulate. And unless somebody comes in there to check them, you may not see it during the, with all the hustle and bustle that typify basic operations in organization. It is very easy for a lot of wrong things to accumulate over time that makes your contribution ineffective or with a question mark. And of course, once you do it, you have to communicate the results. It's not just for the fun. They must see the results you have generated. It is supposed to be fairly done, independently done, and be truthfully done. And so you communicate the results. The results we point out areas that are defects, some things to be done. In some cases, the auditor may be the one that will do it. But the major thing is that it throws up all the weak areas within the system that needs to be attended to and urgently to. And usually, because auditors are experienced people, they can also join in doing some of this activity. I say that because, as HR practitioners, we know how busy we are. We can't even control all we have to do. There are always issues now and again unprepared for that comes up and takes your attention. And that attention can be for the next few days in some cases. And other things, you are not, nobody is a foreman. You can only do the job of one person. So, and most times it is with the intention of doing it later that a lot of these things accumulate over time and they may have serious repercussions. As I'm sure we know that for the legal one, penalties can apply. Sometimes it can even shut down the whole operation if they feel lives are threatened. Because one of the key things in any organization is the safety of life of people within the organization. There is the audit follow-up and closure. Audit is only completed when all the planned activities for that audit have been carried out, and the clients endorse it as such. But like I would like to say, I'll emphasize, most times the follow-up services, and quite a lot of it, for instance, if there are defects in any of your policies, it has to be corrected, drafted, crafted as the case may be, that it meets your, but most times if the staff or the unit itself, the HR unit has to do it by themselves, it takes so much time and it remains in the parking bay for so long that the benefit of doing that audit becomes, blurred. It doesn't get attended to when they should do it. I need to mention that audit takes about 1 month to do. The implementation could take much longer, definitely. It's easy to see the faults that are there, but correcting it or carrying out the recommendation takes quite some appreciable time. Now, to correct non-conformities involves what we call corrective action and preventive action. And I think the two are explicit. The corrective action is essentially to eliminate the cause. The cause of the issue. You have seen a fault and you can correct it. That is corrective, and it's a reactive reaction. It wasn't noticed before, but it's there. Now that you have found it, you can correct it. But the preventive action is more of a proactive thing. Things that will happen tomorrow. You have seen it today, then you move into to nip it in the bud so that it doesn't degenerate. And the likes of, certificate, for instance, that you have not collected or cited from an employee. It could be one of them. He still is, he has it. He has not presented it, so it won't work out. The medical tests that are necessary when a new staff is joining the organization, it could be something that has been forgotten, but it can be done at any point in time, just to make sure the state of well-being of that particular person is done. Background checks. These days where you have more crooked minds than you can imagine, there are so many staff with fake certificates in the organization. And until you do those background checks, you may not know. And they will inevitably affect the operations of the organization. And they can actually drag you, the reputation of the organization, into the mud. Now, when we talk about follow-up audits, it is essentially coming back at a point in time to see, that is, after the audit itself had been carried out, as the change being requested, being implemented, is a check. If you understand what I'm saying, it's an opportunity to evaluate compliance with whatever correction, whatever dictates or recommendation that have been made. It is of no use if it is not complied with. If your counsel, your advice, or weaknesses that you have been of the auditor, it's like you have done nothing. And that is why it is important for HR practitioners themselves, managers as it were, to be the one to crave the audit. Because if you don't get these things sorted out, you will face the consequences inevitably later. The idea is encourage that audit because it will save you a lot of time. You can't be a jack of all trades. Encourage the audits by competent people such that your end can be up to speed. By the time you start seeing weaknesses here and there, I'm telling you that your effectiveness just gets undermined, and eventually it will cost you quite a lot because that is failure staring you in the face. So be the one to prompt it, to insist on it. Finance people don't have to ask twice before it is done. It is inevitable. They must do it regularly. So should HR itself. And especially if it's something that you have to do 2 or 3 weeks interval, why not? When this other one, they do it even at will. If there's any suspicion with respect to finance operations, audit will be brought in quickly because money is valued. But the creator of the value, that is the resources, are ignored in that respect. We must stop that. Let me talk about execution. It's not a piece of cake. Okay, somebody needs to mute there. Audit execution is not a piece of cake, like I said. It's all about data gathering. And usually it takes the management to introduce the HR person to the system, and other parties must be involved. It's not something that is done in isolation. The whole organization is peopled by individuals, people. And so whatever is done by way of audits, they must be aware that this is possible. This is going on. And people must be encouraged to come forth and share ideas. Usually you will work of it. But people must know that, yes, audit is going on because it will affect your work somehow. The HR unit in terms of intrusion here and there, but the intention is not to affect the job that we do because regular businesses must be going on. but you must also spare time to provide whatever it is needed. The idea behind notifying, especially the top members or the executives, is just for them to know that this process is going on, because in some cases, you have to get some information or data or records from their unit. So I said the intention is to inform members what is at stake and crave their support because it is needed. I need to mention that it's not about witch hunting. HR audit is not about witch hunting, but a necessity to sharpen the saw that the HR is using to operate, to maintain professionalism and save the organization itself from government infractions and business disruptions. Look, when you see organizations that government moved in, they need to just lock it with a tiny key. Will be tied anybody to open that and all of that. So these are things that are key, and preparation are definitely needed. Now, data gathering, just a second, please.
So if we have any questions, please let's begin to type them in on the chat group. If you have any questions or comments, let's provide them in the chat group, please, while we wait for our facilitator for tonight. Godfrey Nkobi says it is imperative that HR practitioners in organization perform self-audit of the HR function to be on top of the HR department. This self-audit will take corrective and preventive measures and position the organization for better corporate branding and a people-friendly organization. So if you have a question, please type your question. If you have a question, type your question. Okay, all right. Obaseki, okay. Later, when our facilitator comes back, we'll be able to review some of your questions. WOFI says ISO is now called International Organization for Standardization, Third-Party Audit and Certification. Okay, all right. She also has a question which I'm sure the facilitator will take in due course. All right, we are still waiting for our facilitator to sort out one or two.
Apologies, I'm back.
Yeah, he's back. You kindly put on your video. Kindly put on your video.
I've just showcased.
Hello, sir. You need to put on your video.
Get some data we are talking about.
Thank you so much. Welcome back, sir.
Thank you.
There are also a few questions on the chat box. You may want to check them out too.
Okay. I'm checking the chat box. Yes.
Hello, sir. I can't hear
you. Sorry. This thing was late in responding. Can you hear me, please? Because I keep
loud and clear, sir. Yes, please continue.
Okay. ISO is now called International Organization for Standards. It is now, I take that as a correction, and let's take it as well. by members. What will be the problem that will face the HR in the following years, and how can we prevent this? As HR, we should encourage HR auditor. Now, what are the problems that we face the HR in the following years, and how we can prevent this? I don't really know how to answer this. It's not that explicit, but I don't see any problem facing you for doing an audit. Audit is sanitizing your system, just to make sure it is what you intended it to be, basically, and that it is effective in that respect. And that's why it should be encouraged. Why should we encourage HR auditors? Now, the point is, there is no way an entity exists that some rust doesn't set in somewhere along the line. And because we have mentioned the fact that you can't see yourself, the eye cannot see itself, by bringing in a third party to come and do some check, you can do the check, but you don't have the time. And that is key. When you don't have the time, you can't be thorough at it. You will do it halfway and abandon it, and you may not get back to it for months. Meanwhile, what your intention is to make sure that it's more effective than hitherto. Then you don't have the opportunity to do it. You keep postponing it. Don't be deceived. There are always urgent issues in HR. Most times, you will abandon some things you have to go and attend to something serious, and then come back to face the other one, or postpone doing it later. That is the, call it the common rule in HR. So you need to do some of this sanitization, if you like, from time to time, just to make sure that you can operate in a healthy environment and you can do your job, professionally. There is a professionalism to a job or to any role you are playing. It will be missing if every dictum and hurry, they see fault in everything you do now and again. It is telling you that you are not professional at it. When can you imagine being in a plane and it's about to take off, and there are hiccups along the process? Everybody will say, please stop, let's get down from this plane. That is the issue. The takeoff must be smooth. So must be the reverse side in terms of landing. That is what is expected of HR. What problem would be, what would be the problem that we face the HR in the following years, and how can we prevent this? I guess you mean after audit. I don't see any problem coming up from HR, because any audit is essentially a sanitization process. Like I've mentioned, you are sanitizing the system, taking away the rot. So really problem will not have, except maybe in adjusting to the new dispensation by your team, for instance. And that is no brainer. You must enforce it as the head or a member of it, because it is for your, every audit is for, I will call it for self-enlightening reason, if you understand what I'm saying. How can you see you can't see the speck or plug or whatever in your eyes, others will see it, or even though it is worrying you, whether you like it or not, the system is not moving effectively because there are so many, call it rots here and there. And the time it takes to get some of those rots off, you don't have, because there are too many emergencies on your table. And that's why you need why is it that even the accountants can't do their self-audits? They do bits and pieces, but they don't have the time to do it thoroughly as a third party would, because he is there to take care of, the independent party as just one business, your business at hand, to get it sorted out. You have many day-to-day, minute-to-minute issues to take care of. Meetings, mention them, talk of emergencies, talk of an accident somewhere, talk about an issue within the system requiring your attention. You don't, like I mentioned before, there is this common saying of a foreman, and they say it's just a word. It doesn't mean that you can do the work of four people. That is the issue. can an organization engage internal auditor that audit all the functions of the organization? No one can do that. There are so many disciplines. If you have operations, you can't bring in an HR to audit them unless it's the HR. I mean the HR part of what they do. You can't bring, for instance, non-engineers or experts to come and do part of your operations, depending on what it is. If you are making a food item, there are rules, procedures in there. You have to understand how it is done. Nobody can come, an accountant cannot come in and do HR. It may be in the periphery, but in the real, the nitty-gritty of the operations of HR, he can't manage it. He has some ideas because it benefits for some of them, but he can't do it like a professional. So it has to be a professional doing it. You can't bring a farmer to come and audit accounting if he's not into it, and certified as such. I'm trying to look at some other questions that I can answer. I'm minding the time at the same time, but I dare say that my attention could be drawn to any that I could look at. And let me quickly move through some kind of self-audit is possible. It's possible, but they are limited. If you understand what I'm saying, they are limited. We just don't have the time. And to do a thorough job at it, you need to have time. If you are looking at, let's say, the new rules concerning HMO, it is different from the initial thing it was. But you need to study it and understand them thoroughly to implement it, and not just implementing it, to make sure that you're on top of it, so that the money or resources, put into that process is showing the results, that it is not abuse for time to do them. If you have all the time in the world, you can do them and correct them. But like we have mentioned, you cannot see yourself in every area. There's a limit to what you can do to be an effective manager or professional in whatever it is that you do. And that's why you need extra hands to do some things for you. And this just needs to be emphasized. Why do people outsource some roles? It is essentially to give them the benefits of time to face the core side of the business, rather than engaging new staff, for instance, takes a lot. Managing them takes a lot more. And so if you have to take, for instance, let's say security men, and you have to manage them, honestly, you won't have time for someone. Any issue that happens that is security related, your time is involved. Maybe some properties, some items have been damaged or stolen and all of that. You will spend eternity there and be ineffective, because they probably will give it to an HR man, for instance. Having said that, if I crave your indulgence to just try and quickly round up this discussion. I don't know where I stopped the other time. So these are some documents that will be assessed whenever any auditor comes in: your code of conduct, staff policy handbook, disciplinary procedure, the grievance procedure, personnel file, for instance. There is a content that I think the personnel file should just represent the staff when he's not there physically. You can see his picture there, you can see his date of birth, you can see his certificate, you can see queries or whatever he or she has done. You can see, if he had been recognized for an excellent job, you will see all of that. It represents that staff in the absence of that person. Everything concerning him and his operation and activities in the organization are recorded there. If he has been given a warning and all of that, you will see it there. If he had been engaged in some other things, you will see it in that file. So it's something that must be well kept, both in the soft copy and the hard copy these days, because if the file is stolen, you have nothing to show. And that's why the soft side is also taken care of, so that you have something to fall back on. It can't just be the old file of old. If you have an organization that is 30, 40, 50 years old, anything can come up and somebody can say, look, my dad worked here some 20 years ago. His entitlements were not collected, and we want to collect it now. And it gives you an evidence that the father or mother or parent is now late. You have to comply, you have to get the file out, you have to see what you have and then deal accordingly. If you don't have that, you will fail as an HR person and there will be issues. Those are some of the things that are necessary. So this is not exhaustive, but there are key things to look at. We have mentioned some of the benefits or the rationale for HR, but the other bit is that one of the key issues, and it was discussed last week, is performance management of people. People are engaged to perform. They are not engaged just for the fun of it. They have a role to play. How well are they doing it? And so there can be HR audit without a focus on performance. The relevance of performance management goes across practically all the processes of HR. It impacts them. And so it's something that when you get to going to audit and organize, an HR, that will be one of the key things you have to look at and bring it up to speed. I can tell you there's always room for improvement, and this can be ignored when that is done. And of course, the other one is the legal conformity. Are you compliant with all the legal issues that are on ground, just to make sure that you don't attract some penalties here and there, from government, and some of them can be huge. While all the things that is it the pension? Is it the employee? What do you call it? All sorts that has to be attended to. That you have to remit some money. Is it ITF, for instance? Is it, just mention it. If they are not followed, if they are not obeyed, then there will be some infraction somewhere along the line and penalties to go with it. Detecting the strengths and weaknesses in recruitment performance. There are weaknesses there. Look, there is nothing that cannot be improved. And every of those processes can be better than what they are at the moment. But it's not as if you are incapable of doing them, but the time is the issue with respect to this audit. You don't have enough time to do that and do your regular job. Advantages, becoming the most important. As human resources are becoming the most important factor of an organization, being the source of innovation and driver. And what this is telling you is that if HR has assumed this prominence, it means that attention it requires is higher or is high at least than usual. And doing that means a lot in terms of demand on time and your faculty than the usual. So you must do this audit thing now and again to make sure that, yes, you can get the best. That is the focus, get the best out of those people at all times, and maintain what you call industrial peace. With the people must be available to do the job they are engaged to do, without hindrance. And that calls for a lot of homework or a lot of expectation from the HR to make sure these things are done. You have to manage them to have peace of mind and be able to focus the reason why they are engaged in the first place. I'm rushing, don't mind me. Now, ensuring alignment of human resources management with the overall business. These things you can also read on your own. I have deliberately put so many of these slides in words just to make sure within the short time we have, we can communicate as much as possible, but essentially for you to have the opportunity to take a second look at it afterwards and make more sense of it. That is the reason why a lot of words are in there for us to run with. That, by doing this audit, we say you can instill a sense of confidence in that department. because you just shake off all the excess facts that are consuming time and adding very little value to the system by focusing on the right thing at the right time that will impact the system positively and give you, the HR professional, joy. Because when you do things and the results are coming forth, then the joy can be quantified. By undertaking regular HR audit, it can be assured that the organization human resources practices are healthy and carried out at its best, reducing general organization liability and increasing performance effectiveness. That's the rationale behind HR audits. We need to do it regularly. 2 or 3 years as it will be, because time flies, and I'm sure many of you will attest to that. But before you can say Jack Robinson, you spend 5 years, 10 years on the job, and if you are not careful, the rot will have gotten really thick. It takes a lot of effort and time to reduce it or bring it back to normal, unless you do them regularly, as we are prescribing here. Now, let me round up by talking about best practices. And it is always encouraged, but it's like a nebulous word, a word that is you can't pin down. And that's why I have given this, which I came across in some of my reading. That, look, best practices are moving target. They could be best practice now, but in 3, 4, 5 years time, they may be stale, in which case they are evolving. They are not static. They change from time to time. Look, management thinking comes and goes. Some new things you can, in the last 5 years, so many words, terms have evolved in the HR space than before. So things changes. The society itself shifts in terms of its priorities and beliefs. Today, HR analytics is so key within the HR system, which wasn't the case some 5, 10 years ago. Now, as it comes up, we must learn new things. We must drop the old one. And it's a cycle that is continuous. So there are many ways really to skin a dog. And you will only know what you have to do when you ask your colleagues. The need for networking, the platform like the HR mentoring and the likes, they are a good thing that has evolved in the course of time, because you get yourself brushed up in the course of going through some of those things. And a program like this that facilitates this is knowledge sharing that hopefully we will take time to note some of this down with a view to doing them in our organization. And that's what best practice is all about. Anything that we make, that will add, that will be an addition, an improvement on what you are doing, is what best practice is all about. Because some best practices that were applicable 5, 10 years ago are no longer best. New things, new discovery, new ideas comes into the space, and they become the current, best practices. I think what is key is what is current, what is necessary now, such that we are not fixated on best practice that is already stale. What is important for you and I to do as HR practitioners is to be more curious and read as widely as we can from those platforms, from a gathering like this, that we enhance, our knowledge, and will also prick us to the extent of adopting some new things now and again to improve whatever lots we have in our system. And so listening to advice from consultants, from gurus, from wise people, from experienced men is always a plus. And that is what this platform, I believe, serves. I guess within the time frame we have, we can't exhaust all, but I hope that your appetite has been whetted enough as to prompt you to take the next step forward. And I am always available to be of assistance or to be, call it your preferred HR auditor that you may need or that you need anytime from yesterday. As I round up, I must thank you for your patience. And I would go back to the chat if I am indulged with some few minutes more. Otherwise, if there are some that you have, I can also have a quick take at them as the moderator permits. I must thank you for listening. I must thank you for having me. And I will take a quick shot at the chat box just in case I see some new things there that I can quickly answer. Otherwise, I thank you for being part of this session today. God bless you all.
Thank you so much, our amiable facilitator, for doing justice to this topic. Please, if you'd like to ask our facilitator any question and you prefer to raise your hand to speak, quickly raise your hand. I will recognize you, give you permission. All right, I can see Charles. So Charles, you can speak. Hello, Charles. Okay, Charles is not ready for us.
Can I take one?
Hello, good evening, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hello, can you hear me, sir?
Yes, please.
Okay, good evening. Thanks for the opportunity to learn. You have actually taken us through the processes and we'll take it up from there. However, my question is, you mentioned, sir, during the course of your presentation, under the audit execution, where we have code of conduct, staff policy, handbook, and the rest, review of personnel files. In case where some of the personnel, the documents are not properly filed in a staff file, an audit is being prepared or carried out. So what happened in that instance is, like a staff was promoted, or there's a sanction or query which was not sent or put in the staff file. What happened in that instance is, how can that affect the audit process? That's my question, sir. Thank you.
That probably won't affect audit process. It will affect your operations there. It only means that there's some slack in terms of record keeping. Ordinarily, if the line manager queries his or her staff, or there are issues in there, or the staff queries or question the authority or whatever it is that the line manager has done, you should be served copies because you will mediate there ultimately. If the records of that is not in the file, it means that it is not filed. And that is a serious issue because when you are considering a staff, for instance, for promotion, what do you look at? You look at his antecedents, the things he has done before. And because your endorsement of his promotion is key. They won't promote a staff just by the recommendation of the staff alone. I mean, the line manager. He or she will be promoted based on the records you have in his file. The file represents the staff where he is not available, physically. And so if information that should be in the file is not there, decisions will be hampered or impeded. That's the truth. Because the basis of you saying X or Y is based on what is in that file. And that's why today it is regarded as best practice to have both the hard and the soft copy, just to make sure that there are no illusions anyway. If you don't have it in both, then it doesn't exist. It's as simple as that. I hope I answered the question. Hello?
Okay, we have Dr. Olaziz raising his hands.
My dear brother.
How are you?
I'm fine. Nice to have you on board.
Thank you for bringing in the big masquerade.
This place is not covered.
To do what you know how to do best. Mr. Olu, how are you, sir?
Hi, my pleasure to meet you.
Your session has been so tremendously awesome, highly revealing and guiding.
Thank you.
As Riley said, the entire time cannot actually allow you to cover the whole ground.
That's cool.
To say the least, I think you've done justice to the topic. But in an environment of this nature, provided by our organizer and convener, he has actually done a lot to the community of HR practice as we actually discussing the money. He's actually pulling knowledge from where it is like a reservoir to people that actually need it to draw from the fountain of knowledge of individuals.
That's an original
practitioners. Without being rhetorical and without also being, how will I say it? You've done justice to the topic, as I said.
Thank you.
But the new normal concept I actually want to bring into it.
Yes.
There's nothing out of place for non-HR practitioners to audit HR process.
Agree.
But let me just start from all we need to do in an environment where trust, integrity, toxicity is not an issue. All we need to do is just to train those ones that have flair for probity, investigation, painstaking, and attention to detail. And at the end of it all, there'll be a checklist. The checklist will be an instrument to guide the auditor. Many a time you discover that when you do self-audit, especially if you are not the one that do it, and you discover that many a time people prefer to hide some facts, not to expose their inefficiency in the system, than allow third party from other area to come and get that done. And that is why the system must be self-serving, self-running, not self-serving, self-running, intellectually, probity-wise, painstaking, compliance, and what have you. And number one, HR team must know how to do the audit so that they can actually audit themselves first before they hand themselves over to a third-party audit department. And that is why we need to train our people basically on the way to go about that. Draw a checklist and let them know that it's better to expose ourselves within ourselves, to ourselves, for self-improvement, than to be allowed and let go of our inaccuracy and inadequacy to the third party. So in other words, in many multinationals, they do it. But the most important thing that actually make this topic so germane is one of those hot topics that you really hear at the conferences, training program, and what have you. So seeing it today really actually caught my fancy and actually made me to abandon all that thing I had to do, step them aside to be able to listen to it. Mr. Olusuji will agree with me as somebody who has worked in a structured environment, not even local, multinational. I know the British guys we work with, they are not local. It's only a company that are either multinational that encourage audit, because audit happen to be an input to the output to get bid for business. I don't know what I'm communicating.
Very well.
It's okay. Many companies outside that structure and environment, audit is just financial. And as Riley said, there is no perfect system run by man.
At all.
No system that is run by man that can be said is perfect. And that's the reason why there must be audit, is to put in sanity, is to ensure that there is compliance that will not expose and that will not cause injury to the sustainability of the business today and tomorrow, especially tomorrow. Because if today is okay, tomorrow will be better in a compliance environment. Yeah. The other thing I also want to talk about, there must be audit charter. Audit charter stipulates what to do, how to do it, when to do it, the form to do to get it done, and what have you. So there must be audit charter. Then, lo and behold, I have a case in hand, especially when you are new in a place, the possibility of HR people with personnel mentality, hiding people, secrecy, violation cannot be totally ruled out. That's why many times it's good to actually let third party come and do it so that they can audit the auditor. Auditee become auditor, auditee become auditor. Role reversal to actually get this done perfectly done. All right. In the light of that, as Riley said, background check, lo and behold, must be done by independent consultant.
Oh.
I have one in one of the business company where I work. The guy actually had a forged certificate. I won't mention school, is there in Lagos. By the time, so the fellow staff, when he presented the certificate, the fellow staff now petition. You know, did you know what we do? Do you know what we did? We wrote that school. 40, many a time, registrars, exams and standard. The racketeers are always there. By the time we wrote that school, that particular letter fall into the hands of the syndicate that actually issued the first one.
Wow.
And they authenticated that it was a correct result. Because we did it internally. Many a time company don't want to pay money. Penny wise, pound foolish. There's nothing wrong in paying good money on bad commodity to right the wrong and make the process near perfection. Do you know what we do? I don't want to take time to say this is not a second and parallel presentation. By the time we got confirmation, how did they got to know? I don't know. They still wrote again that that result is not authentic. And what did we do? We have to engage an external party. And we told him that this is a lifeline investigation. And in light of that, please, we want it done professionally. As Riley said, time is of essence. It's a resource that is so valuable in the system. Audit and auditing is a time-consuming process. If you want to really do a good and thorough job, as Riley said, it's a time-consuming one. And require, in fact, at a point, some will be influencing you, they'll be mounting pressure on you. That's why it's just like job evaluation. So it's good to actually do it through unknown faces, but professionals who are SME, subject matter expert. To cut the long story short, the guy came back, the result was confirmed. And not only unauthentic, forged, and it's not in the exams and records of that particular university, of that school.
That's a
we summoned the guy, we took him through took him through the code of conduct. I mean, you can just imagine what happened there next. There's also a case where a cleaner, he did not forge, but it doesn't have result, but just put on mail the Yahoo. And that was what in his file. As I speak with you, that result is still being hidden and is being subjected to thorough scrutiny. So the part I want to say to round up, there must be full scope audits. There must be investigative audit, but we must not jeopardize full scope audit, not to give ourselves away on
Yeah, I guess we lost Ashwaju Assis there. Hello?
Thank you so much. I think his network
Okay.
behaving funny, but he has added significant and some practical value to this contribution. Do we have anybody in the house who also like to maybe ask a question or share maybe an experience or exposure with audits or how audit added value to their HR process? We'll be able to take one or two contributions. Thank you so much. DTM Femi Kolajo. He says no process undertaken by a human being can ever be perfect. And that's why we must check and check and check. That's one of the essence of audit.
I only chorus the Ola sister. I only chorus the.
Yeah, welcome, sir.
Yes.
Okay. Let's see. Emerald Zone. Can you please make your contributions?
Okay, good evening. My name is Oladapo Akinlori. Sorry, I can't show my face where I am.
No problem.
Apology. But thank you for this session. I just want to quickly just add, thank you for sharing your experience, Mr. Lumi. Sometimes some error may be made, and like he had chorused repeatedly. Sometimes you cannot see yourself fully. It will take somebody external to be able to point out. I remembered one incident where, so it wasn't a fraud really, but because when you get used to a process, a system, sometimes it just flows by and you may not even be able to spot it, except somebody external comes in. So there was an incident where I think an employee had left the organization, or was a suspension, I can't particularly remember. But like I say, it wasn't really a fraud when it was eventually investigated. Out of sheer negligence and all of that, the name continued to remain on payroll for about 2-3 months before it was spotted. And eventually the corrections were made. That's one incident. There are 1 or 2 other, but because of time, I will not be mentioning 2 other examples I wanted to give. But suffice is to say, sometimes it is good, not just good, I think it is the practice to allow an external eye, an external resource to be able to conduct the audit process. Because there's no way you yourself will be able to see yourself fully. Like we said, it's not witch hunting. When somebody external comes, that comes with a fresh pair of eyes. It may not even be an error or whatever. There may also be some better process, some better way of doing some things that will be recommended. And eventually it can better the process for the organization. So that's the quick addition I wanted to add. Thank you so much, sir.
Great one, thanks.
Very beautiful and valuable contribution. There is one question here, and I'll throw it open to our facilitator and any of our colleagues here who may also want to weigh in. Miriam says, thank you for this wonderful session. I have a question. If an HR resumes in an organization newly, that is the HR staff resumes fresh in an organization and wish to do an internal audit to have a fair knowledge of the process in place and how the organization is being run, especially in a situation where there is no in-house HR handing over to you. Okay, how would you advise this HR to carry out this kind of audit? Thank you. Hello, our facilitator, Mr. Shi.
Oh, is it for me? I thought it's for the floor.
But you are the lead floor, sir.
Thank you. Now, usually there must be some call it a kind of cursory look at situation that you meet on ground, you know, a kind of casual assessment of situation. By the time you ask 2-3 questions, if you have some other members in that department, you may have an idea of how things are. And that is important when you get there newly, to have a grip of how things are done around here. And it's by checking some of the records you have in there. HR is about record keeping. There is no doubt about that. And the practices that are on ground. When you assess that, if you now see that there are effectively, but it's not just like I said, and for emphasis, it requires you to have a look at the situation at least quickly and see where things are, and then by the time you bring in a third party and what your hunches are saying, you can now start on a fresh plate as these things are dished out. Usually, especially when you don't meet the sitting person, when you meet them and there is a, call it a parallel, maybe a month or 2 to operate together, that gives you, you know, a lot of information, easy one, on like when you come in and you don't know where things stop, and then you have to catch it, you know, join the race, and you know you have been handed, call it a baton, and you have to continue the race that is already wobbling. Obviously, you will fall quickly. So the moment you get in there and you see that things are not what it is, there are some few things we telltale signs. Just go and look at their performance management, how it is done. It will tell you clearly whether some things are right or not. And if you check that, and you check, for instance, the attendance record, if it's haphazard or not existent, you know, there's also some problem in there. You understand? There are a lot of things you can have a quick look at and say, look, things are horrible here. Look at their grievance and or disciplinary, whatever. If you see something there that it's a telltale sign and how it is handled. If there are professionalism in it or not, then you know you have to guide your your lawyers, you know, accordingly, and seek assistance early so that you know where you are and what you have to face. It is necessary. If you are there and you have to like practically start everything afresh, then you need a third party to help you get started.
Thank you so much for that beautiful feedback. We have another question here, sir. The question is from Paul. He says, sir, please clarify between HR audit and HR gap analysis.
HR what? Audit
and HR gap analysis.
Yeah. I would say the difference lies in the thoroughness of the audit, and the gap. It looks similar, but the thoroughness in the audit is highly recommended. The other one is the cursory things that you just do some spot checks here and there, if you understand what I'm saying. For instance, now, if you want to look at, let's just say, record keeping in HR, you know, I mean, if you start with the file, just take a staff that has been in the organization for 5 years and you scan through those files. It will be so revealing as to some things that are commonplace. Just look at randomly 3 to 4 or 5 files, personal files of staff. They will tell you telltale stories. And it will give you an idea whether there are compliance with the rules you have in your policy or procedure, if there are not anyone existing or not. If they are not, this will give you, call it a bird's eye view of them, and then you know that there are issues in this area. Those are basic things. For instance, most HR from the places I've gone to don't even know what the content of the file should be. There may be some junks in there that are irrelevant, and the key things are not there. I've gone to places where I don't see certificates of staff, where I don't see confirmation of appointment, whether the fellow has gone well, where I don't see what do you call it, interview. You don't know why people are leaving, and you can't remedy that, and the outflows are like that. Recruitment takes time, it costs a lot of money. You know, new staff takes a while to get, you know, on their feet. This costs the system, you know, losses. And a look at those things are telltale signs for those who have discerning eyes or experienced eyes. That is the issue. So how do I say it? There's a difference between the gap. Audit will reveal some of those gaps and a lot more. I think if that's another way to couch it. And that's why I said audit is more thorough, more in-depth.
Okay.
I see Mr. Kola Joy is raising his hand.
Okay, let me just, okay, you can ask your question or add your contributions. Mr. Kolajo.
All right, thank you very kind. Yeah, thank you very kind. I've commented on the presenter. He did a very good job, but compliment what he has just said. I think in addition to what he has said, gap analysis also refer to like doing a manpower audit, which means the gap, HR gap would be, you want to look at perhaps the knowledge they have, the competencies, that is the skills they have, and also perhaps a particular department is supposed to be manned by 10 heads, you know, and then they have 5, in which case, some people may be overworked. So if that is carried out, if HR gap analysis is carried out, it will tell the HR person, you know, exactly the number of hands, you know, that are required to carry out a job. And of course, whether or not they have the competencies, as we call them these days, the competencies that are required to ensure that they're able to carry out jobs. I think those are the things I can just add to our presenters' explanation to the question.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kolajo. So I just got launched while both of you, sirs, were saying this. I also want to say, in addition to this, that there are certain things you do in audit and in gap analysis that are common, or techniques or approach. Now, the level of intensity or thoroughness may differ. Also, let me also add that, again, sometimes we associate audits to things that have happened only. While, for example, you may do a gap analysis for, in a way, not just only the past and the current, but also in a way for the future. For example, if you are doing manpower planning or workforce planning, so you may want to simulate or look at scenarios to say, in 5 years' time, where would we be? Where should we be? At the rate we are going, would we be there? What skill sets would we need? What changes do we need? But sometimes these terms will be a little interchangeably, loosely interchangeably, but don't let us get boxed up in semantics. Let's get the heart of the matter. Again, when you are doing gap analysis, you could also do it yourself, and you could also request for external help. But chances are higher that for audit, you will typically use a third party, especially for a serious of, while you will not necessarily use a third party for gap analysis, even though you can always help for support and assistance from consultants. All right, so we have one more question, and this will be our final question so that we can close out. Grace Obike says, please, in a situation where a serious gap is noticed in a company during the internal audit check or external audit check, whichever, the audit check, in, for example, policies, statutory compliance, due to negligence of duty of maybe the relevant employees or team members, is it appropriate to apply any form of sanction or disciplinary measures on those personnel directly in charge of such activities? Mr. Oluwumi, please.
The beauty of audit is like, don't mind my language, forgetting yourself to being naked. That this is me, have a look at me. And it is what you see by way of the facts that will be pointed out. And that's where the thoroughness comes in. But it's essentially not to indict, if you understand what I'm saying. It's not about indicting them, because they know either directly or indirectly that some things are not right within the system, and they don't have the time to do all the correction or the probing themselves. They just don't have the time. Whether you like it or not, from my little experience, HR is a busy unit, because it cuts across every section of the organization. And so in terms of doing things as well as you would love to, you need third-party hands. And that is where most HR are weak in. They can't defend it. They can't make a case for it. Because if HR would have an auditor coming in, oh Lord, the stress, unless it is the leadership that prompts it, he will have to do a lot of selling. And many don't have the capacity or to see it through. They can get it started, but they get lukewarm somewhere along the line, and it becomes history, and it's not done. And the rot keeps accumulating and gets really deep and messy. But the truth is, that audit is a necessity, and it's gaining currency, unlike hitherto. And that is the good news, because they will be more effective if they have time to look at issues. Now, anything that comes up from there, there are two ways around it. Now, if it's the full-fledged audit, let's take the policy as an example. The weaknesses in it will be pointed out. and it will be part of them to take up those responsibilities if they pay, because some will tell you it's like they want you to do a freebie. If I have to recraft or redraft or review your policy, for instance, it will take me time to find the faults and put the current thing in there. Definitely. Now, that could be part of the responsibility that, okay, fix the fault that you see in there. Some will tell you how we can do it on our own, but they will never have the time to do a thorough job at it. But if somebody else does it, they can critique it within a few days or days, as the case may be, and it's returned and resorted. The benefit of the auditors is their currency with these things that we are talking about. They are familiar with current laws or related stuff that are there, maybe ILO convention that are operating, and they can bring it into whatever antiquated, obsolete, if you like, document that you have in place. Until the last maybe 5-10 years, onboarding wasn't a big deal. Based on what he or she is exposed to on coming in. Previously, you do onboarding within some few hours, and it's done. And you expect the new person landing to be up to speed immediately. It's not possible. The reality has brought that up. I guess what I'm saying is change remains constant in any human endeavor, and HR is no exception. There's a limit to what the man on the seat there can do. If he comes in without a good exchange of baton, it will start slow. That is just natural. Just look at any of those relay races all over there. But it can get started. And if he wants to get started, he needs a good support on his side to get him going. And we're talking of experienced HR auditors in this respect. I think that is one way to look at things. When you take over the accounting of any organization, if you are chosen as the head of that department, the first thing you will do is a kind of checks. See how, just look at some documents in the past and see how it relates to your policy in the organization in terms of compliance and all that. Where you see issues, you will tell them you want an external immediate auditor to come in place and do a thorough check before you take off. Otherwise, you will inherit both the liabilities and the good things in the assets that is handed over. But you need to know where to tread before the thing gets worse or boomerang under your watch. That is the issue we are talking about here. The reluctance must not be there. It is actually a good practice. Depending on how far you want the auditor to go, it can be negotiated and focus can be in certain area and done accordingly. But if it's a total stuff, then it will cost more, it will take longer, as it were, by way of speaking. I hope I have attended to this reasonably.
Thank you so much. I'll just round up with a few comments, general comments. One, HR professionals as individuals and as heads of departments or units, we should not be afraid to be vulnerable. We should not be afraid to ask for third-party professionals to help us. This year is fast running to an end. Perhaps as you are building your budget for 2023, you could even have an audit, HR audit or system audit in your budget. Push it. If you can't get a complete audit, it could be partial audits in certain areas you think you may be most prone to risk. And this is also part of risk management at the end of the day. It's better you trigger your audit check so that you avoid any potential distress or systemic failure in the future than something external triggers the audit. Then you will be playing catch up. Then you'll be playing defensive, if you understand what I'm saying. That's very important. Another good reason why reaching out to consultants, third-party professionals to help you is because, one, typically, these professionals deal with a lot of people. So for example, take the the big four or any of the other consultants. Sometimes people avoid the big four if you are low on budget. Either the big four or the other indigenous consultants we have around us. One of the things that makes them good is maybe in a year, for example, they've audited 30 different organizations. You have only worked in one company in that 1 year. So they bring cross-organizational experience, cross-industry experience, best practices, accumulated and engagement with other HR professionals. So they are not just speaking based only on their work experience, they are also leveraging on aggregate experience. So this helps. With respect,
Hello.
In conclusion, generally speaking, an audit could trigger different corrective measures. However, if you notice that part of the outcome is that one or two staff were malicious in the handling of their duties, it's okay. You may issue a query, get their response, and if the response is satisfactory, you let it be, or you develop an action plan to make sure that those errors do not repeat. But if you really sense that there is a malicious intention with respect to the negligence, then you may want to initiate disciplinary process outside of the audit. Of course, that will be your own internal process to deal with. Any outcome can later become an input into something else. But of course, to separate the issues, it may become a source of evidence where applicable. But generally speaking, the intention of audits is not to win anybody, but to strengthen the processes and make our knowledge management system more robust. Mr. Olushiji Oluwumi, thank you most sincerely for gracing us with your presence today, for sharing your knowledge and wealth of experience with us. On behalf of the over 70 people at some point who joined this meeting, we say thank you. Many more people will also watch the recording that will be uploaded tonight on YouTube. We appreciate everyone. We notice some people, they join consistently. And some of these people are very senior people in the HR community. Some of them are members of our governing council in CIPM. We are humbled by your commitment to continuous development and even to the upcoming HR professionals. Thank you so much. Please, let's get some rest and let's enjoy the rest of the weekend. We'll have another session tomorrow by 7 p.m. We'll circulate the flyers through all our channels. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your day. Goodbye for now.
Thank you.